Dwayne, how you doing? Good. You know, there's some funny lines that I've been able to get in. There's no kryptonite for Crips tonight. Yeah. All those kind of things. Sometimes you're scrambling because you didn't think that would happen. And then he gets to his 10th, you know, oh, what am I going to go with here? Yeah. Well, I grew up thinking that I was going to be the greatest player of all time.
Yeah, no, I actually thought the same thing.
I got it right today. I need that feeling. It's a craving. It's a drug.
Dwayne, how you going?
I'm good, thanks, Dylan. Thanks for the invite.
Mate, you've walked in today and you've already got the can of Coke in front of you. You're infamous for these drinking, what is it,
well,
milk,
I'm a sugar
Coke?
man.
Yeah.
I work on sugar. Keeps me going, so I need a can of Coke to get me going. It's the God's milk.
Do you crash?
Yeah, but I'm happy to crash at 6.
Yeah.
Like I get 6 o'clock at night and I lay back on the lounge and I think, should I have a beer and I'm normally ready to just lay down on the lounge and you know, pat the dog at that stage. So
what dog are we talking?
I got a 3-legged Lagotto. So I got a dog that's, you know, those little hairy Italian truffle sniffers. So
I'm just looking it up.
Okay, so it's a little Italian. That's it. Yeah, that's the one. So he's got 3 legs. So he's had 3 legs for about, well, he had cancer in one of the legs and we had a decision to put him down or get the leg lopped off and extend his life by maybe a year. So we took the extend his life option and here we are 4 years down the track and we love him, but it'll be a hard day the day that he goes. He's getting a bit old now. He's about 14. So, he sits on the lounge and he just sort of nuzzles my hand and I'll watch a episode of something and that's my night.
We timely we bring this up, not in a humorous way at all, but we actually just had to put down our family dog.
You know what it's like then?
It is a very hard thing. I went around last night and said goodbye and it hurts.
Yeah.
And he's very much similar. He's had 2 knee reconstructions.
Right.
He's had a abscess, like a benign tumour removed from his head. He's a French bulldog they're meant to live to like 8 to 10 years. He's lived to like 15. And he's had a good run, but bloody hell, it's
Well, dog people don't get it.
No.
So if you're not a dog person, this is foreign to you, but dog people understand. It's a life. It's a daughter, it's a son, it's everything to you as a parent of a dog.
Hey, up the stairs as well, you were walking up before and it was just so funny, like that infamous voice of yours that comes up. Like it is so powerful, so strong, so I suppose ingrained into my mind as well as like one of the callers and of our generation. And it's funny because you actually called, not that I wanted to insert myself into this as early as I have, but my only one real highlight have, and you don't probably even remember it, but I kicked 3 goals against the Melbourne Demons, which I'm sure you remember.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're all coming back to me now.
They're all coming back to and I've heard your voice many times in my dreams.
Oh, you've got it on.
Oh, I've got it.
You're like Billy Brownless when people come round to his house.
Yeah.
Billy, that after the goal siren against the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
Billy will flick his television on when people come round and it'll accidentally be the first thing that automatically comes on his telly.
We were talking about this yesterday. I had Josh Kennedy on the podcast, Sydney Josh Kennedy, and we're talking about footy and about grand finals and calls. And this is a genuine question, I suppose, like going into your caper, is like there's actually a lot of weight and importance on getting a call right.
Yeah.
Not just because of yourself and how you want to nail it, but for the future proof of that moment. Like we were talking about, I think it was Nick Malchesi's goal in the 2012 or 14 grand final. 2012. And Josh looks back on it now and he's like really disappointed in the call. He's like, he just didn't give enough to that moment.
Yeah.
Do you ever think about that when you're going?
All the time. Yeah, I mean, I'm a scenario trainer. So a footballer and a coach will train themselves on scenarios. They sit there during the week and think about scenarios that might happen in the game that's coming up. What are we going to do if this player goes down injured? The coaches go through all that. I'm like that with my call. What if this guy kicks 10? What if someone takes mark of the year? What if, Taylor Walker takes a screamer? What if the game's a draw? So I actually do scenario train my mind to have those kind of things played out in my mind before I get to the game. So there are some things that people think I've got written down, but if there's a draw, I'm kind of got something that I was thinking I might say if there was a draw. I haven't used it yet, but here we have a draw, and what am I going to say? So there's all those kind of things that do play out my mind. There's also, I'm watching the baseball at the moment, so the pausation is something that I did a 5-year traineeship as a journo at the ABC. So I was working for K-Rock. I'd been sacked by Geelong. I was 26.
Post-football.
Yeah, so I was sacked by Geelong. I was 26, 27, and I was working at K-Rock and Bay FM, and a traineeship came available at the ABC, but I had to take a pay cut and go on a 18, 19-year-old's wage to do a 5-year traineeship, but it's what I needed to get into the Melbourne market and to get into mainstream and learn what broadcasting was all about. So I'll try and cut a long story short. We learnt the art of broadcasting in those days from the seniors at the ABC. No one gets that anymore. You're straight into commentary. We used to get sent out to the Junction Oval. Clinton Gribus and I were trainees at the same time, and we would get sent out to the Junction Oval with a tape recorder, go and call an hour of second 11 cricket, sit behind the bowler's arm, call an hour, bring the tape recorder in, would sit there with Peter Booth, and he'd go through the hour and he'd say, not enough light and shade, too monotone, you need to be faster here with speed because it's exciting, you need to pull back here because it's a really quiet time in the game, there needs to be light and shade. He used to explain it to us as you're a car in heavy traffic. Sometimes you need to almost be pulled up and stopped. You still need to pay attention, just be crawling, but then when the time comes to hit the accelerator, you've got to be ready to go. So there was all those kind of education pieces, and one of the things was pausation. Shut the hell up. So when a moment happens, if someone knocks it to the boundary for a ton and he's raising the bat, have your say, but then let the crowd do the talking. They do it so well in the baseball. They do it so well in American sport. So getting back to your question, when a highlight like that does happen in the AFL world, there is a way of you get in, you try and give it as much as you got to suit the moment. Don't go over the top, and sometimes I do go over the top, but try and give it the love that it deserves and then pull up and let the crowd do the talking. Give it seconds of silence. So I still did that, I think, well for the Travis Boak lap of honour retirement game this year with Ken Hinkley. I think we got that kind of right because there was a big crowd. So there's a lot of those things that, they're scenario trained in my mind. Make sure you pull up and give the person that's on the screen at that time that's had the highlight the moment of just them as opposed to you screaming over the top of it.
So it's an amazing point. I've never heard it quite put so almost... there's these situations that I've found coming into the media world. Like I'm not a journalist. I just, enjoy having good conversations with people. But then you find out something you've learned actually has a term to it.
Yes.
Like what it is. Yes. It's like you go to uni and you're like, oh, fuck, I know that, but I didn't know it was called something.
Yeah.
And the pausation, the way you put it's so interesting. Like when I've listened to commentary or podcasting as I've tried to evolve in that space, and even the one way that I've learned this the most was when you're talking to someone or networking around getting comfortable in silence. Because the first thing that goes when you're not people hate that breath of fresh air.
Yeah.
Be able to just sit in that and let people talk, and it actually allows them the moment to go more and them to just talk more about themselves or vice versa.
It feels uncomfortable, the dead air. Sometimes even in radio, someone makes a really good point and you don't want to sort of jump all over the top of it with your next question. Give it a bit of a chance to actually get to the listener and actually get through. It might only be 1 or 2 seconds of pause, but then you get to your next question. So give it a chance to have its own life as opposed to stepping all over it. So, there's a lot of those art forms that if I didn't do the 5 years of traineeship at the ABC and get it taught to me, I wouldn't have had that. So that's why it was really invaluable grounding for me. And I got to work with so many really good broadcasters over time. EJ Whitten took me under his wing at K-Rock. He was one of the great entertainers. I got to work with, Peter Booth and co at the ABC. Got to work with Eddie Maguire at 9. Great showman, great broadcaster, icon of the media industry. Dennis Cometti, got to work with Dennis. So you learn from all these guys and you take a lot of bits and pieces because you have to be a sponge as well. So even at my age now, I'm still learning. I mentioned the baseball. I'm watching that now and thinking, gee, they did that well. Those commentators were exceptional then. Now, sometimes it sounds, and the golf sounds a little scripted when the final putt goes in to win the Masters and well, he had that line ready 3 weeks ago. But then there's the pausation straight after that kind of makes it feel okay.
It's so evident talking to you, like your passion of this caper and how much you're still involved. And like when I listen to you, you can obviously feel that, but then to see how genuine it is actually like amazingly refreshing, because you listen to, I think when you've been in something for so long, you can easily just continue to go with the flow of how things are going. And even I've found, myself in the situation you're in, you can almost just get, if people like or enjoying something, you don't want to evolve and keep learning, but you have to just continue to, dip your toes in and not fear the change, but actually just embrace it.
Yeah, and there's so many different things that, my mind might be scenario trained for, and I would say that everybody does their research. But you look at a guy, for example, like Travis Boak, in his final year, you can talk about, there's a number of things you can do in your notes. You can talk about how many games he's played and all the achievements that he's had, because the moment might suit that. You can talk about the legacy that he will leave Port Adelaide and the impact that he's had on other players. That might be a better thing. Depends on what he's doing. So he might have kicked a miraculous goal, or and then talking about the games and the impact that he's had on games. He might be actually congratulating someone else, and then the moment arises for you to use that bit. What an impact he's had on this group. Here he is in his final game, but he's also trying to educate a young player. Or you see him, lifted on shoulders and, kissing an armband, and then you can talk about his father passing away when he was just a teenager, and his father being a legend at the Torquay Football Club. All that kind of stuff you can weave in. Now, you can't squeeze it all in because it sounds over the top, and sometimes it seems as if, and this does happen, it happened with me early, you're trying to squeeze it in some way to let the world know you did your research. You've got to, sometimes you do a lot of research and there's just no way to put it in, so you don't use it. But you've got it there in case the guy does do something well, and then you can pull it out and use it then.
I'd love to talk about your top 3 favourite moments in your career of calling that you look back so fondly, but I think it's evident you hear from a lot of people that are successful. You learn the most from the times that maybe you didn't get it right as well.
Yeah.
Have you got top 3 on both?
There was the Liam Jarrah mark in Adelaide, so one of the marks of the year. There's also the Chad Wingard mark. There's a few marks that I saw it coming. So you call it, you start your call 3 steps out. So you got there early, and I think that's the ones that I admire most. Not only did I do the moment justice, but I sort of got there early in the build-up. Liam Jarrah was just coming from 8 steps away to take this great mark at the Adelaide Oval. And there are a few of those, I suppose, big marks where I'm just happy that I got it right, as opposed to, calling the great victory or whatever. There's some funny lines that I've been able to get in. There's no kryptonite for Cripps tonight. All those kind of things when Patrick Cripps. But you still need to have the moment happen. You still need him to break out of the middle.
Yes.
Evade a couple of tacklers and kick the goal. That doesn't happen. You don't get that line in. Sam Draper, the goal that he kicked for goal of the year, I'm just so glad that he got goal of the year, because enticed them, diced them, sliced them, that kind of line. I don't know whether, it was part of him winning goal of the year.
It does.
But if I'd have undersold it,
100%.
he probably wouldn't have, he might not have won it if I undersold it.
I completely agree. I reckon I'd still be, if I had you commentating me every week, I'd still be playing footy. I had a chat with BT and I said, mate, you undersold a lot of the stuff out there. You got to get. My favourite one of yours was Nick Dacos. Nick Dacos' call against the Gold Coast.
You're going to get nicked?
Yeah.
Well, that was sort of sitting there.
Was that so you'd thought about that prior?
About a month earlier.
It was sitting in there.
About a month earlier, there was a game where he dominated.
Yeah.
And it just came to me, and then you still got to wait. You still have the moment happen.
So
the moment happened, and that was to pull out. But there are some things where, I have had it in my mind ready to go, and then the moment happens, and you think, oh, man, I should have called that better. I had that ready to go, and you didn't use that. So, that's the beauty of the art of commentary. Sometimes you get things right, sometimes you get things wrong. But I think the bottom line is you can't over-prepare. So, you do your homework. I like to spend the 2 hours before every game just looking at boot colour, what their hair looks like, whether they got their socks up or down, they got their elbows strapped. So when the moment comes, you get the name straight away. So you know who it is straight away, because as soon as you identify the person, then the call becomes easy. But if you're struggling to identify the person, then the call becomes hard. So that prep time, not only during the week, but the 2 hours before the bounce is of vital importance to me. I mean, some people come up to have a chat to you an hour before, but they're out there warming up. It's like, I'll chat to you in a sec, but they're out there warming up. I want to see every player first. I want to see who's got the arm bandages on, who's cut their hair, what boot colour they're wearing, because they change their boots. Just because someone was wearing red boots last week, they might be blue boots this week. I mean, the Ashcrofts and the Dacostas are famous for it.
Yeah.
One week you can tell them apart by their boots. Next week they're wearing the same boots. So, that's another one that I like to, scenario train my mind for. At least when he gets the ball, I know who it is.
The intricacies are amazing. I don't think a lot of people would realise the depth that goes into behind the scenes to make it look so seamless.
Yeah. There's little also things that that you train your mind for that are automatics, that like Levi Ashcroft might be wearing blue boots, so that it's an automatic Levi blue because Levi's a blue to me.
Yep.
So it's easier when he wears the blue boots because that's an automatic blue, it's Levi. There's Ford who played for North Melbourne, wears 40. So 40 Ford, 40.
Yep.
So I know that's 40 every time 40 gets the ball. So there's a lot of those little identification and name intricacies that I've got ingrained as well so I can get that name quicker.
Is that the hardest part, identifying players quickly?
Yeah. Some ovals you're looking at a different vantage point. So sometimes, the gabber's really low. You get obscured by other players in between you and the player with the ball on the outer wing. So there's, the mnemonics they are. I mean, it's the same as the name remembering world that we all live in. You meet someone, how do you remember that name? Lucy. Okay, Lucy. How do I remember Lucy? Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'll remember that. She's got diamond rings on. That's Lucy. So when you go away and talk to someone else, you come back, you remember that name because of the mnemonic.
I love that. Ed Curnow, funny story, he used to be horrific with names. He'd go and in his notes, he would have people's names, but like how he met them and what he spoke to them about them the last time that they chatted.
Yeah.
And it actually it was a really... Well, wasn't just a great thing to do, but it was also like for relationship building and the trust of like meeting people too. He could go up to them and be like, "Oh no, last time we're chatting about X, Y, Z."
Yeah,
and people go, "Fuck, how did you remember that? That's amazing."
Eddie's great. Eddie Maguire's great at working the room too. He knows the name of everybody. There's also, there's ploys to get the guest list before you actually go into a function. If you're meeting people, get the guest list. Who are these people? The Eddie is great with that, making sure you know their names even before you walk into the room. So you can say, Ian, nice to see you again. So because you've met 5 years ago. My son owns a nightclub, right? He's a pianist and he did the cruise ships for a while, or a Quests cruise ship piano guy. So he couldn't name you 10 teams in the AFL, my son, but if he's heard a song, he can play it. So that's why he's a piano bar owner and he plays every Thursday, Friday, Saturday night and travels around Australia. But he is one that is a great one at remembering names too.
Yeah.
So if you've been before, he will know that's Sharon, and Sharon likes Coldplay. So when Sharon comes in next time, so if Sharon's at the table, he'll say, Sharon, what would you like to hear? I'd like to hear Coldplay. Okay, I'll play you Coldplay, but you have to get up and sit and dance. So she'll get all her friends up and dance. And then, where are you from? I'm a local. Have you been before? No. Well, make sure you come back. And then in 2 weeks' time, if Sharon walks in with a group of friends and he's on the piano, he'd be able to say, Sharon, great to see you back. I've got Coldplay for you coming up.
Yeah.
So remembering names in business is massive for the networking and the breaking of ice.
Where I'm sure you get this question a lot with the younger generation coming through. And you were saying before, it doesn't really work like it did back in the day where you do a 5-year apprenticeship or however it is. How do you see the next generation of callers coming through? Because I have so many, even Lincoln Allen, who's Ben Allen's son, played at Fremantle. I'm sure you'd have a nuance to remember who those people are. But he loves his calling, and because there's no clear real transition into it, is there? Like, what advice would you give for people to get into it?
Well, I have had people ask me for advice, and I've always said just you be you, because that's the advice I got. I mean, I work with Rex Hunt, Eddie Maguire, Dennis Committee, EJ Witten. You can't try to be any one of those. You've got to be you. But you've also, and hopefully I'm a little different to everybody else, which is a good thing and a bad thing. People might not like my style, but it is a bit different to other styles. I mean, Joey Montana, when he first join Fox. Joey's a great caller. And I don't know why, but he just said to me after the call, I don't know, just an aside, how do you think I'm going? Or, everything. Because it was his first year at Fox. So, Joey, you're great, mate. Just keep being you. I mean, that's the beautiful thing that he brings to the commentary. I think he's different as well. He's himself. Hutto's different. BT's different. He's great, BT, because he's different. And you either don't like him or you do like him, but you've got to even give him credit for actually having an art form and being an artist. There's so many, it's a bit like, Renoir and Monet and Sisley and, all those great artists of the time that were back in the Impressionist era. They were all kind of the same, but they were different in their own way. And I think that's where, I think commentary is great. JB's different. Hamish is different. Hutto's a superstar for his own style. So it's good to have so many, points of difference. I reckon that's the best part about commentary at the moment.
If you're calling you can pick your own team to call with, any network, anyone you've ever worked with before, very hard. You pick your team. And even I'd love to go even to like producers as well, because they're people that I suppose don't get the credit they deserve, how much they help set up a team.
I think there has been a bit of a no dickhead policy at Fox.
Yep.
Where I think they have employed people who are great team players. And there's so many who, when a great moment comes, I can shut up and let Jason Dunstall or Gary Lyon or Gerard Healy or whoever I'm with handle it, because I know they're going to do it justice. And it doesn't need me. It needs the special comments guy to be doing this moment. It needs me to call the goal, but then pull up and let them have the say about how great a performer Dustin Martin is and what a big day he's had again on grand final day. Let them do all those embellishment things. I have had it told to me before, and my job is to call the good stuff, call the great goal, call the great mark. It's not my job to tell people, well, the fullback should have punched that, or the fullback should have smothered that easily. That's a horrible mistake on the goal line. That's not my job. Leave that to everybody else. So I don't think there is anyone by default that I would say I would prefer to work with at Fox. But what I would say is that in terms of the great showmen and the great broadcasters, I think there's probably E.J. Whitten, Eddie Maguire and Dennis Cometti, who are probably the big three for me. Yeah, E.J. was ahead of his time with football needs showmanship. Eddie, just blew everything out of the water when it came to putting on a show. And some people don't like Eddie's style because he's Collingwood. But, Eddie was one of the great callers and showman callers that we've had. And I think I learnt more from Dennis Cometti than I learnt from any other caller.
Yeah, wow. I'd love to go back to Dennis in a second, but just on Eddie, it's so funny. Like I look at when I was a kid listening to footy growing up, and on Foxtel there used to be the press red for Ed.
Yes.
And you just hear like Eddie doing the Collingwood. It was like 15, probably 20 years before its time.
Yep.
Like, you get that now through the Manning brothers and what they're doing in the States with this like commentary stuff. But I always loved listening to Eddie Maguire. He was a weapon on the commentary. I
think one step ahead of what the football broadcast world needed at the time. When Nine got footy, he and Cos Cardone turned it into a show. Come and be part of the circus. Join us for the show. Football was just football before that. Seven did a good job of it, but Nine took it into another realm, like they did with World Series cricket. So they took cricket and they made it a show. So that's the beauty of Eddie. I think he was ahead of his time. E.J. Whitten was way ahead of his time. No one was calling footy like E.J. And a lot of people don't remember E.J., but people that are old enough to remember, he had that showmanship added to a great call and a great voice as well. And Dennis Cometti, it was just a pleasure to work with Dennis. Dennis did have a number of things written down that were little bullet points for himself for his research. And I used to travel with Dermot and Dennis to do the SCG game every second week because that was the early Channel 9 game, and it was always Dennis, myself, and Dermot. And we'd have a rollicking time, on the plane, in the hire car. Then we'd get to the ground, and one day Dennis had gone to the loo or something, and his red A4 sheet of notes was there, but he'd written it in handwritten sort of illegible form. We couldn't read it, Derm and I, but we were trying our hardest to read it. And Dennis came back and said, "Hey, what are you reading my stuff for?" But there was one moment when Jason Graham took possession of the ball and had his shorts pulled down and he went with strippogram. And I said to Dennis, how did you think of that? And how long have you had that ready? I think he had it ready for 7 years. That's how much. So he taught me the art of not squeezing something in that didn't have a spot for it. You got to hold these things. So I don't know, the librarian line was just so beautifully placed. And I think had he used it earlier on in a less important game, it wouldn't have had the gravitas that it had. But in that moment, that line, greatest of all time, show by Dennis, is the all-time icon for me.
It's an amazing, I couldn't have put it better myself. But the calling around holding things off and the patience of the theatre of it is something that a lot of people don't really think about. So have you got things at the moment that you're like somewhat holding off for hopefully a grand final day or a big game that sort of gets played and waiting for certain things, or does it just have to wait for the occasion to arise itself?
No, normally I think about the game that I've got coming up and who might kick the goals here and what might I say about that person. If they do get kick 10, there's some things that I've gone with before. So if Tex Walker kicks 10, I can't go with the Texas 10 that I went with at the time. Sometimes you're scrambling because you didn't think that would happen. Yeah. And all of a sudden a guy gets to his 8th goal and you have a line for 8 and then he kicks the 9th goal and you got something great for 9 and then he gets to his 10th and you think, what am I going to go with here? Yeah. It's actually, what do I do if he gets to 11? So, there's all – so, no, I can't really say I've got something ready to go now, ready to go for next year. But, I don't want it to be too much like shtick either. So I think I've pulled it back a bit this year. I mean, one of the great things about Dennis as well was his speed to have your voice convey the momentum of the game, the excitement level. So I think the calm, talking voice is a good voice to use occasionally because at least gives you somewhere to go in terms of your 8, 9, 10 of excitement. So, I haven't really got anything ready to go that I could say to you now if, Patrick Cripps kicks a great goal. But it will be something that I'll spend a lot of study on when it comes to next season, leading up to games, and that's part of the art form, doing your study.
Who are your favourite players through your career to watch and call? Like who just works beautifully with the way you like to watch the game and you end up always finding on the end of someone?
Yeah. Guys who are going to take a big mark.
Yeah.
It's the big mark. That's the thing. So when you go to a game, and it could be the worst game of all time ladder position-wise, I mean, it could be, the Giants versus, the West Coast Eagles. And there's no one there. It's a giant stadium. The West Coast are last. And yet you go to that game and you think, okay, well, Harry Himmelberg might take mark of the year here. So be ready for that because it could be late in the last quarter. There's 12 goals the difference. There's 8,000 in the crowd. But then the greatest mark that's ever been taken could be taken next. So the moment you don't pay attention, so you got all those things. Liam Ryan could take mark of the year. It's a West Coast Eagles game. It's a dull game, but he could kick goal of the year or take mark. So you always got to be, I think, ready for that kind of thing. So it's the players that are capable of doing the greatness. And there's I could name one or two, but there's probably 50 in the comp that when you get to the game, you keep your fingers crossed. Let's hope he gives us something today. And sometimes I go down the boundary. I mean, I know Charlie Curnow. Come on, Charlie. Give us something.
When you're calling or?
No, before the game.
Yeah.
Before the game, it's fun to catch up with a few of them. Jack Ginnivan's one. So Jack Ginnivan's one that's giving me the heads up pre-game on what he might do celebration-wise.
Really?
So that's always great.
So how does it? So you'll see him out there and be like, oh, what are you thinking?
Well, players are great because I'll go out there and have a look at them to see what they look like. Are they wearing strapping or socks down or whatever? But I might be out there an hour before. And some players look at you and look away. They don't want the contact, and that's fine. Other players look up and say, hey, Dwayne, how you doing? And they're okay with the chat. So that's fine. And Jack's been good to me over time, give me the heads up with
that's amazing.
What celebrations. And I kind of knew that he was going to do the aeroplane back to Ken Hinckley this year, the game in Tassie.
Yeah.
So when that moment came, I was able to say in the commentary, will he give us the aeroplane here to Ken? And he did. So it was nice to be able to get that moment right. But I would have sounded like a Dyl if he didn't end up doing it because he could have changed his mind in game. But sometimes you get the heads up that something's coming when a highlight gets gets performed by one of the stars.
Are you enjoying, I suppose, the modern game in the sense of not just the game itself, but what comes with it, with players like Ginnivan and, Wiz Watson and Bailey Smith, what he's done for the game as well, albeit there's the good and the bad, I suppose, on, off, wherever it goes. But what they do for the theatre of the game, do you think it's added a lot?
Yeah, I think everything old's become new again. It's a bit like flares.
Yeah.
I mean, personalities come back.
Yeah.
Because I played in the day when, I played on Warwick Capper at fullback one day. I played, I played against Dermot as a 16-year-old, playing out at Waverley in front of 80,000. So, I played with these showmen back in those days where it was great. I mean, there were superstars of the game back then that I played with Gary Ablett Snr, obviously, for 5 years. So there was these superstars of the game that brought the skills, but brought that iconic personality that just drew people to the game like magnets. These guys were magnets. People came to see them. I mean, I played in Geelong games where we'd lose, but Ablett had kicked 9, and you'd see the fans leave, and they'd be happy. I mean, they saw something amazing today. They saw Ablett take that mark and kick that 9 goals. So, that was a great era, and I think we're not going to get the 10-goal games and the 11-goal, 12-goal games again, but we are seeing some personality come back amongst the big stars, which is great.
Have you reflected a bit on, I think these days we see Instagram, social media, and the rise of stardom of players. I suppose there's more access. You get to see them off the field. How would you relate that back to when you were playing against those other players? Like you said, Gary Ablett Snr, Dermy, Kappa. What was it like back then to be around those guys? Was it something similar that you see now, or was it even more crazy?
This might seem crazy to you. I don't know whether you did this at all, but back in that era, we caught up after the game for a drink.
Yeah, right.
So the two opposition teams, I specifically remember some get-togethers at Waverley. So you'd play against each other, hostile.
It's like Geelong, Hawthorn.
Yeah.
Yep. And then
you'd chow up. And then it was compulsory. The two teams and the umpires would come in and have an hour together before we'd all get on the bus and head back to Geelong. So you got to know these guys a little bit. Now, you might have some players you gravitated to or some guys you didn't like, but it was a great era to be part of. That was the era where fans could run on and pat their hero on the backside as well. So there wasn't a barrier up because, there wasn't occupational health and safety. What if a fan runs on and trips that player? Yeah. There wasn't this, what if a fan bumps into another fan on the way to, trying to get a Gary Ablett Senior signature? It was almost anything goes in the 80s. There was so much trust that was allowed back in those days for the fans to come on, and a few idiots ended up wrecking it for everybody.
Yeah, it's amazing you bring that up. I spoke to my dad about that a bit around the post-match and getting up to the social club, and you'd literally go up there, punch on, and then go up and have a beer together. Sometimes it would actually escalate sort of out.
It would. Yeah, the friction was still there. Yeah,
the friction was
absolutely.
still there, like in the games, and having the umpires there as well.
Yeah.
It's another world. You can't imagine it happening these days, can you?
No, and I think there would still be those times where this happened more to me in South Australia playing for Port, but there would be those times where I'd see someone that played for Glenelg or I'd see someone that played for Norwood, and I wouldn't talk to them. I'd see them in the supermarket or whatever, and I'd be happy to walk past them, but I'd be giving them the eyes to, you won't even get a hello from me.
Yeah.
Because I knew I had to play on them in a couple of weeks, and, I wanted them to feel, well, I thought it might have been intimidation back in those days, but Port Adelaide were, back in those days, the intimidation kings.
Yeah.
They were just nasty to everybody, and that had to translate to, let's not give a sucker an even break during the week as well. So, Geelong was a bit different. I came over to Geelong, and there were players who aspired to be doctors and lawyers, and they had family first. So that was a bit different for me because I came from Port Adelaide, which was just all about playing footy. The good part about Port was it was a really multicultural place. So I got to play with so many different players from different nationalities. We had Indigenous players come down all the time and play. Some would be superstars for 3 or 4 years. Some would be superstars for a couple of weeks, and I don't really like it here or the city life and go home. But I got to play with those people and understand that, it takes all kinds to play the game. And Port Adelaide's importance was you just had to win. That's all that mattered. what you did on a Saturday afternoon and what the result was. Whereas I went to Geelong and there were bigger things at play. My family is more important than footy. So all those kind of things were an education for me when I went to Geelong to play with people who actually had a real perspective.
Yeah, it's fascinating. You would have thought it would be the opposite, like being that full professional mode back then. But speaking of Geelong, obviously Gary Ablett Snr, I wasn't old enough to see him go about his stuff, but he's a bit of a, I suppose, I don't really know. You don't hear from him.
He's a recluse.
Yeah, he's a recluse.
Now,
yeah. What was it like playing with him at his peak, and what was the personality like?
Well, I only got to know pretty much change room, on-field Gary Senior. I mean, I had a couple of drinks with him at nightclubs and stuff like that over time, and not really that often. And, he often didn't come to functions, and he didn't get on the bus. So he wasn't a bus to Waverley. It was compulsory, but Gazza liked to make his way to the ground, and there were different rules for Gazza, and we were all okay with that. Yeah. I mean, if the guy wanted to walk in, half an hour before the game with his bag and kick 9, well, by all means, when he was playing well, it was an acceptable thing. And then they got to that stage where I'd been sacked by then, but Gazza, about 8 years later, started playing poorly, and then it became an issue. But look, the locker room Gary and the on-field Gary, I just loved being around a superstar who just did it by instinct. So he had a supercomputer as a brain, footy brain, because he could calculate ball trajectory, where's the space, where are the goals, where's my opponent. Other opponents are coming at me from front on, but the space is actually behind me. So instead of marking that ball, I'll actually let it go of my head. And everyone commits forward, and the space is at the back, and he just run back onto it and kick the goal. So he had the supercomputer that could calculate all those things quicker than anybody else could calculate it. If you asked him to teach it to a young kid, how did you do that? He would just say it's ingrained in me. He couldn't actually, how do you calculate all those things so quickly? He was just an instinct superstar. So, no, I enjoyed it. There was, I changed in the locker next to him. And, I used to talk to him about his Bibles. He had his Bibles in the locker. I used to enjoy those conversations. There was one moment when he was rubbing this hair stuff on. His hair was thinning, and he was rubbing the stuff on, and all the boys were getting into him in the showers. That hair stuff's working, Gazza. I can see your hair's coming back. It's thicker than it's ever been. And he'd rub it on, and he'd look in the mirror and say, I think it's really coming back. It's thicker than it. It's looking fantastic. Keep rubbing it on, Gaz. Keep rubbing it. And I actually, thought I was a friend, getting changed in the locker next to him. So I thought it was almost my duty to say, Gaz, the boys are taking the mickey out of you here. The stuff's not working, mate. They're just having you on. And he said to me with a straight-up face immediately, I know it's not working, but I like the banter. It's a bit of fun. I'm having them on. Yeah. So that was the beauty of the guy. Sick. It was, it was fun. He was in the locker room. He was fun to be around.
Amazing. What about, like you said before, playing on guys like Kappa and stuff like that, those personalities? Because how tall are you?
6'1".
6'1".
So I came over from Adelaide as a centre-half forward. Yep. Where, the quality of the players you were playing on was lower. Some of the teams weren't that good. So at 6'1", you could play centre-half forward and dominate. But I came over here and, every centre-half back was 6'3", 6'4". They were all, pretty good players back in those days. So that's why, I didn't end up being a star here. I had a few injuries as well. But, it was a fight as well in that Geelong forward line with Ablett, Lindner, Stoneham, Brownless, Exel, all of us trying to kick goals, especially when Gazza was just telling us all to get out and give him some room. So it was a fun era to be around. But at 6'1", I was never really going to be able to be a dominant centre-half forward. So, I was scrapping for meals back in those days. But, Blighty played me at full-back one year.
And Kappa?
Yeah, Kappa. I had a lot of those players who would talk to you during games. Danny Frawley Danny played centre-half back on me one afternoon. Kappa would talk to you as well. Warwick's giving you a bath here, all that kind of stuff.
Actually talking in third person.
Yeah, Warwick was great. I mean, the crowd would gravitate to his end. It was fun, in fact, to play, one game of the SCG against Warwick. In fact, Blighty said if you keep him to 1 1/4, we'll win pre-game because Warwick was on fire. And, Blighty was pretty hard and straight. I love playing under Blighty, but he had this sarcastic humour to him. And Warwick kicked his 5th on me with about 5 minutes to go, I think, and they won by a goal, Sydney. And Blighty, pretty much straight out said, I told you if he kicks 5 on you, we'll lose. So it was pretty much, that was a kind of, I don't know, it was just a different era. Blighty had the respect that he could actually give you that kind of sarcastic barreling 1 minute and have you eaten out of his hand the next. He was a genius.
Do you know what's amazing? And I'm just looking at, I was trying to work out how tall Warwick Capper was randomly. That has no, he's 6'3", if anyone is wondering. But what was amazing, and I suppose not that you went up there at all in this period, but what doesn't get spoken about enough, I don't think, in the modern game and I suppose history of AFL is when the Brisbane Bears came into the competition. Like he went up there as a signing, or I don't know how it actually worked, but the fact that they were a standalone AFL club, like a business in itself that went bust, it's one of the most fascinating sort of footy stories that never really get spoken about.
So I used to play at Carrara. So we used to, we'd actually change in what were pretty much portable huts that the building site workers
When was
changed.
this? Was this
This is
pre-post AFL or
89, 90.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
And you'd get up there and you were lucky to have a hook on the wall in these cooking hot portable huts that we'd get changed in. And, you just drop your clothes on the ground and run out. And sometimes, halfway through a quarter, someone from the Bears would kick a great goal, but no one applauds because they're all sitting or standing in the social areas behind glass, having a drink and socialising. The footy was just on in the background in the meantime. So it was a bizarre world, and we'd go to Ruben Pellerman's barn afterwards and have a drink. That was part of the hospitality. We'd all go back there, both teams, and have a beer thereafter. And we used to, it was quite funny that we used to go up there and players would take surfboards and golf clubs. Hey, we're going to the Gold Coast. And we were going up there for a couple of days one day, and John Devine was coach. So it might have been 88 when we lost. They kicked our backside, and we were going up there to play golf and, surf and whatever we wanted to do in the day after. But John Devine said, no, we're training the next day. And we all had to front up out front of the hotel, 7 o'clock the next morning, and go for a run. I didn't even take any runners. So I ran, I think it was 8K in a pair of Rivers, in a pair of those going out shoes, because that's all I had to wear. We're doing sort of last to first fartlek runs, and the few of them don't even have runners on. So it was hilarious. We've got our going out shoes from the night before that we had to wear. But that was the era. That was sort of anything goes.
It's fantastic. I'd love to, I just love the old school stories of what happened back in the day. We had Shane O'Sullivan on the pod. I'm sure you would have crossed over.
Yeah.
But he's been nearly everywhere and touched everything in AFL over the past sort of 50, 60 years. Like the amount of knowledge that we were reminiscing on was just like some of the funniest things that have happened that you just forget about.
And those guys had to channel the behaviour of players, and I think they were good. I think Neil Baum's been great at this at various clubs as well. You just sit back and you work out who's going outside the lines. Okay, if you see anyone getting towards the line, just have a word to them. There's a certain level that you have to adhere to when it comes to your behaviour, and just to be able to troubleshoot it before the trouble happens. And I think a lot of those people that were involved with players in management at the day, and I think Geelong had a couple of these great people as well, like Kenny Gannon. They were great people, great football people at the club, that you became friends with them in a way because they helped you grow as a human being as well. So, they were wild times, but fun times and, education times.
What was the one thing when you finished your football career that you took into the next phase of work life and commentary?
Just working hard.
Yeah.
You just got to – I was always one that I probably didn't train smart, but I trained hard. I'd quite often, do a 5 or 10K jog in the morning, but then we'd train at night as well. There wasn't this parameter of there's only so many kilometres you put into your legs. So, unfortunately, I didn't really – it was back in the days of less science. So if you wanted to increase speed, you had to do a lot of speed work. Whereas, I just thought, well, you go for a jog, you go for a run, that's your work. So do that every morning and you'll be fine. So I'd be going for 7, 8K jogs every morning and still training that night with the team. I wish I'd have trained smarter, but it was still about hard work. I should have been more disciplined with my eating because I thought that it didn't matter what you ate. If you trained hard, then you'd be fine. Whereas we didn't have dietitians back in those days telling us, well, that's not the case. I think working hard was the one thing that got instilled in me from an early age.
Well, like chatting to you today as well around the way you prepare for games and the stuff that you do to the research to be able to call the way you want. It all comes back to habits, I suppose, right? And like it's something that is evident talking to you, and even through my career, I don't think I had those, to be honest. Like when I was playing, I just didn't realise the consistency you need to do. But you see some of my teammates that weren't necessarily playing every week, but they were continually doing the right, like they just backed up no matter what it was. Yeah. They just took it into the next thing and just and rolled on with it. Whereas the talented guys, you fall into that next thing, you think talent's going to get you in there, and just it's not the case.
Well, I grew up with Craig Bradley. So Craig Bradley lived a few streets away from me at Paraka. He was a couple of years older than me at school, but we both played for Paraka. And because I was big for my age, my father made me play above my age group. So I always played in Braddle's teams. So we grew up, became good friends at Paraka, played under nines together. Braddle's dad coached us in under nines at Paraka, and we went to the same school. And I had a mum and dad who, our whole family revolved around footy. So dad was a footballer. My grandfather was a footballer for North Adelaide. They were great players at Kilburn. Dad was a pretty good player at Paraka. So football was all our family really cared about. It revolved around how well I played on Saturday afternoon. So if I said to Mum, we're not going to school today, Braddles and I are going to the park for a kick, Mum said, do you want some toasted sandwiches to take? She didn't care. In fact, they added up all my days absent in year 11 and it added up to a whole term. So I was absent in terms of total days for a whole term because Braddles and I were wagon school, having a kick of the footy, playing tennis, just working on our fitness, and, we'd do weights or we'd do an 8K and push ourselves to almost spew level. So, those were so I got to work with one of the best, and Braddles was always a non-drinker when he played. He'd always go out. He'd love going out with the boys till 1 o'clock in the morning, but he'd never have a drink because it was all about his preparation for the next week. So it's no surprise that he ended up being one of the greatest of all time. So, it was. I think that's where we kind of worked hard on our footy even from the age of 12, 13, 14.
What was the sentiment around plays at that time? So I know Craig Bradley, Stephen Kernahan were sort of two of the first to sort of come across to the VFL, and then obviously yourself. Who else was sort of in that mould, and what was it like? Because ever since I finished, I've actually spent a heap of time in Adelaide. I think South Australia is dead set one of the best places in Australia. Like, I don't say that lightly. But the passion of Sandful, I can actually understand now how big a call that would have been to do that. Like, what was it like for yourself to...
Well, there were guys that had done it before, those guys that came over too late. So Russell Ebert came to North Melbourne, greatest player in South Australian football history, he and Barry Robran, but came over way too late.
At the end of their sort of tenure.
Yeah, Graham Corns came over way too late. Greg Phillips came over at the right time, and he was a superstar for Collingwood, Greg Phillips. Bruce Abernathy was another one. So there were a number of players who did it. But leaving home was pretty big. That's why there were a number of players who could have made it in the VFL but didn't really want to come. Gary McIntosh, Michael Aish didn't really want to come. I always wanted to come.
James Aish relation?
Yes. Yeah. Cousin, I think. Uncle, maybe.
Yep.
So, and the Aish family were pretty famous at Norwood. So leaving Norwood would have been a big decision back then. But I always wanted to come. I always wanted to test myself against the best. And it didn't matter if I failed, I at least had a crack at it. So that was something that I always wanted to do. Braddles always wanted to do. Sticks always wanted to do. We all played junior state footy together, all of us guys. Me and Motts were in, Peter Motley were in the same state teams as juniors as well. So, Mark Nailey, I could rattle off quite a few of them that I think in that era just wanted to get over here as soon as possible.
What were the thoughts around like Braddles and Stephen to become the sort of take over what they did with that VFL at the time as well? Especially, timing with Carlton at that period too. Yeah. They've just come to a successful
Sticks
club.
Was dominant at Glenelg at that time, and Braddles was dominant at Port Adelaide. He was he started playing football for Port as a really young, and I was playing senior football at 16 as well. So Braddles and I were at Enfield High, and after school finished, the taxi would come and pick us up at 3:30 and wait for us and then take us to training at Alberton. Wow. We were like the Kings.
Yeah.
We'd leave. Superstars are playing for Port Adelaide. So, but Braddles was really tiny back then, but he had a number of players around him that would protect him in those days and let everybody know, hey, you touch this kid, we're going to get you. And they were serious players who would go the knuckle back in those days. So no one really, people kept away and tried not to knock Braddles' head off. He got some protection. And I think it allowed him to flourish as a super skilled player. And he had it going on way before he came over to play for Carlton. He was always going to be able to make it here. Sticks was the same. He was always going to be able to get the job done over here. But I think the difference between those two and, say, Graham Corns and Russell Ebert, Sticks got over here young, Braddles got over here young, whereas, Russell and Graham came over way too late.
What were the pitch calls like back then? Like, you obviously came to Geelong. Who did you meet up with? How did it all work? Were there other clubs that you met up with?
Well, I've told this story before, but Collingwood were the ones who first contacted me and said, do you want to come over and play for us?
Who was coaching at the time?
It was John Cale, who'd coached Port and had coached me at Port. So John wanted me to come to Collingwood. And, Greg Phillips was playing there. Bruce Abernathy was playing there. So they had a couple of other Port Adelaide players. I'd played really well on a night game, Port Adelaide versus Hawthorn, and a Escort Cup game, I think it was. I'd kicked 7 goals on Peter Knights. So in a night game, poor old Peter Knights was old and he was coming back from injury. Thought he'd have this easy Wednesday evening in Adelaide at Football Park, and I saw it as my opportunity to get my name up there for recruiters, so I took it pretty seriously. And Collingwood invited me and my girlfriend at the time to come over and took us to, I think it was Vlado's from memory, and pulled out a napkin, wrote some numbers on it and said, what do you reckon about this? And I said, yeah, absolutely. So it was the days before managers. I didn't care what the number was. I just wanted to come over and play for Collingwood.
Do you remember what the number was?
I don't remember what the number was still. It was 1,000 or whatever, a couple of thousand a game, something like that. And at the end of the dinner, they gave me a set of car keys to an RX-7 and here's your car. We'll see you when you come over and play for us. And my girlfriend and I drove the car home along the Great Ocean Road. I'm thinking, this just happened.
Back to Adelaide?
Yeah, back to Adelaide. They gave me the car, brand new Mazda RX-7. I couldn't quite believe it at the time. It was a whirlwind. But, this was the introduction to the world of VFL. Yeah. I went to the Collingwood game as well that weekend, packed house at Victoria Park, like nothing I'd ever seen before, the cauldron that was. So I got a phone call, months later from Geelong. Bill McMaster, the recruiting guru, called me up and said, Collingwood don't want you. And it was back in the days when every VFL club had 2 Form 4s to sign up a non-Victorian player. It was pre-draft.
So that's like a rookie.
Yeah, so two interstate players allocated to each club, 2 Form 4s. You can sign up 2 interstate players. And Bill McMaster told me that Collingwood wanted Michael Christian and Craig Starcevich, 2 great players. They made the right call. Ended up premiership players. And he said, and they also want their car back. So he said that we'll honour the Collingwood numbers. We know what they are. So just come play for us and we'll sort the car out. So I ended up playing for Geelong.
So did Collingwood ever speak to you about it?
Never got any contact from Collingwood ever again. In fact, it was what
the fuck?
Oh, it was a crazy time, the 80s.
And you kept the car?
Well, I kept the car. Collingwood wanted it back. Geelong made some arrangement with Collingwood. I don't know what it was, but they just made their own arrangement and it's amazing. Kept the car.
I love hearing these sorts of ways to get, like, obviously no draft, it's just recruiting and you just sign it up and get going.
Well, the funny part about Bill McMaster's phone call was it was pre-mobile phones. So it was the phone on the wall at home that he called. He got the home number.
Somehow.
He rings the phone on the wall and says all this to me. And I'm sort of a bit taken aback by it. And he says, so what do you reckon? Do you want to come play for us? As if I'm going to make a call there and then. And I said, well, can I have a day to think about it? Can I call you tomorrow? And he said, no, it's Geelong Cup Day tomorrow. We'll all be at the Cup. So if you could do us a favour and make a decision in the next hour, we'd really appreciate it because we'll all be at the Cup tomorrow.
You know, it's fun. Can you imagine if there was never actually Collingwood wanted to pull out and they were just doing that to, like you never know what
you would never know.
Happened.
No, but if Collingwood, because if Collingwood had signed me on the Form 4, then I was coming, but I hadn't actually signed the form yet. So obviously Craig Starcevich and Michael Christian, ended up big stars at Collingwood. That's amazing. They made the right call.
And another one in the media, which is crazy. Hey, so when you're playing, you're loving. You've always got one eye on the media. Is that sort of where you think you're heading?
No. I came over to the VFL. Well, I grew up thinking that I was going to be the greatest player of all time.
Yeah, no, I actually thought the same thing.
Yeah, that we all do. Yeah. You got to have that, but you got to have that in your mind. You got to have if you don't believe in yourself, who's going to believe in you? Yeah. So no, I was going to be, win multiple McGarry medals, come over here, win a couple of Brownlows, plant a few flags, and be the icon who everyone wants to talk about for the next 30 years. And then at the age of 26, I got sacked. But in '89, I'd had 11 knee ops when they sacked me. So I was past my best. But in '89, I'd played about the first 11 games in '89, and I was having a pretty good year. I think the footy record or inside footy or whatever it was in the day before Mike Sheehan's top 50, I think it was like 15 in the top 50 that year mid-season. So I was having a pretty good year. And then I did my knee and couldn't play in the '89 grand final. And Geelong asked me at that time, could you do a little bit of the media for us? Could you do all the radio, all the TV, save the players from doing it? They can't be bothered. It's a distraction for them. Could you write an article for the Geelong Advertiser? Could you write an article for the Sunday Age? All that kind of stuff. So at the end, I mentioned my days off at school, but I was always good at English. So my teachers always gave me a great belief that I could write, and I was good at assessing novels, and I got through year 12 off the back of English and sport pretty much. I passed year 12, had pretty good marks. I went to the Adelaide Advertiser and applied for a traineeship there as a journo, and I didn't get in. But I always believed that I could write. So when this little opportunity came up to write for the Geelong Advertiser and the Sunday Age, well, that was great. It gave me a chance to start exploring that avenue again. And I did a bit of radio and thought, well, how easy is this radio thing? Like, all you're talking about is footy. I can do that. In fact, I went into the interview at Bay FM. EJ Whitten got me in because he was working for K-Rock at the time, and he needed someone to be honest, EJ needed a caller who, if EJ had backed a horse in a race, that you could call for 5 minutes while EJ watched the race, and then you'd call the game, and then EJ'd tap you again, and he'd get back to calling the game after he's watched his race. So, working with EJ was a lot of fun back then. So I went and did this interview at Bay FM, and there was a studio that was on the Bay. The GM's office was on the Bay at Bay FM, and the refinery was there. The Shell refinery. And the GM said, okay, well, if you think you can work in radio, there's the refinery. I want you to talk 2 minutes non-stop about that refinery. Tell me what you're seeing. So I had to just turn it to the refinery and do 2 minutes just off the top of my head talking about the flames and the chimneys and the workers going about their job. It was a shock to my system, but I got there and got the job. That was the interview. Can you talk for 2 minutes about that? So, I got in there and was doing Bay FM, and I realised, well, K-Rock and Bay FM were owned by the same people. This radio thing's all right. So when I got the sack from Geelong, I'd already been working at Bay FM because I'd done the 89. I worked there in 89, 90, 91, got the sack from Geelong. I went and coached to Coach Colac for a year and was terrible. I just wasn't good at getting involved in the lives of 50 people. Knowing, who was the plumber and who was the electrician and what their wife's name was and, what their mother did for a job in the town, all that kind of stuff. I wasn't good at that. I thought I'd be a good coach. I was terrible. So I went back to the media, gravitated back to that, and that's when the traineeship at the ABC became available, and I took that on.
What was it? The reason I ask as well, just to give you the context, when I finished, I wasn't in the top 15 of Mike Sheehan's players like yourself, but I'd been delisted once, then delisted again at 26. And my first job that I ever applied at, with absolutely zero qualifications whatsoever, was at K-Rock.
Yeah,
in
wow.
Geelong.
I didn't know that.
No, I didn't. Well, I didn't. I literally hadn't even thought about it. I was looking at my emails from like 2016 the other day. I was just going through because I was trying to find a resume. That was like last time I made one. And I'd applied for a job at K-Rock and also in Echuca when I finished at Carlton to try and like get opportunities there. The question I have, I suppose, is, and I think this is a really important one because in this day and age, I don't know if enough people take the risk to do this because it's hard, is you're leaving one profession where you're an AFL player and then you almost have this ego death to go back and work as a trainee at a 5-year program on minimum wage. Like, how hard was that decision for you at the time when you see other people go, you know what, stuff it, I'll go take this paying job that can pay more?
Well, I'd eat. There was a couple of weeks when, and I don't expect anyone to feel sorry for me because things are going all right now, but there were a couple of weeks there when, my wife and I had to scrape up what cents we had in the ashtray of the car to try and get fish and chips for dinner.
Post-footy.
Post-footy, where we didn't know what we were going to do. My wife, lucky enough, had a pretty good job. She was a teacher. She came over with me from Adelaide. She got herself, she was working at a multicultural school in Adelaide, and I don't know if this contributed to her being able to get the job at Geelong College, but she had a good background on working with multicultural children. And she was a really good teacher. So she got a job at Geelong College. So in that realm, we were at least okay in a way. But back in the days when Geelong did sack me, there was that work out where the next dollar's coming from. And really you just had to do what you could do. It wasn't like I was finishing footy with a Brownlow medal and a couple of flags. So, in essence, I just had to do what was available. It was either – and what I had a skill set for. I had no skill set for much else other than footy, coaching, or the media, which I thought I had a skill set for.
And picking something that you obviously had passion in too, that you could start somewhere, even if it is at the bottom again, and be able to have a future to build up in it.
I mean, there's a sense of achievement. It doesn't matter what you're earning necessarily. There's a sense of achievement if you're doing something and you're doing it well. And I got that sense of achievement again from my work in the media. I mean, people don't probably realise that's what you kind of had to do back then. There was no sense of coming straight out of the game and getting a top job at Fox Footy. I called 5 years of footy at K-Rock with pretty much no one hearing it other than the Geelong audience. So I'd had 5 years of calling before I got the call up at the ABC for a traineeship. So, those 5 years of calling at K-Rock were invaluable in terms of knocking the rough edges off me and refining my act as a caller, because I would have been terrible earlier. But having a sense of achievement, it was a bit like school. I mean, footy got me schoolyard cred with all those around me because I was good at footy. But it got me no cred with most of the teachers. That's where English kind of gave me an understanding that there's probably going to be a bigger world here outside of footy at some stage. So you better be able to cope with life as opposed to just being a footballer all your life, because football ends at 30 pretty much, or 35 now.
Yeah, and it's awesome to be able to build a new skill and improve yourself in something else, which I'm sure would have resonated. You've
got to get a bit of that self-satisfaction somehow, a sense of achievement. Otherwise it's probably not the same for everybody, but having grown up as a footballer where every Saturday you put yourself on the line and do you succeed or do you fail? I needed a bit of that as well after footy, building up to something, and getting that sense of achievement out of achieving something on the weekend was still there with calling footy.
Do you remember like that feeling that you would have, I'm sure you still remember it, but the feeling of learning a new skill at an older age is like, it can be one of the most humiliating things ever. I remember as soon as I got delisted, I went and worked at 3AW as well. So I worked there with Luca Ganano, who's I'm sure
still a guru.
Yeah, absolute guru. And he took me under his wing, and I remember trying to, think in my head like, I've just played at this elite level of sport, but I don't even know how to like turn a fucking computer on and type quickly enough to answer a phone for someone.
Yes.
And what that did was like I would have never, if I didn't have to do it, I would have never have done it. But it was like the best thing to learn, to continue to like learn new things.
Yeah, I was a little different in that I think I was a bit of a sponge. I wanted to see how these people at the ABC. Greg Miles was a great race caller, and he worked there at the ABC, and he'd be in there at the office doing his study for the weekend's racing. Peter Booth was a great caller, but also a great mentor as well to explain the art of commentary to you and then go and do it. And you call alongside him and find out how it was done. And I was a bit of a sponge to wanting to learn. So it wasn't the intimidation factor of learning a new skill wasn't really there for me because, one, I believed in myself to be able to do it, but two, I knew I was at the right place to learn it. I was hearing it from the right people who were encouraging in them telling you, you're going to be good at this because what we've heard so far is good. You're a really good 4 out of 10. We reckon you can get to 8 or 9. So keep working hard. And I saw the way they worked hard to get to their 9 out of 10. So, no, I quite enjoyed it.
It's good.
In a way.
That's a better way to be, for sure.
Yeah.
I think, there's whether someone listening to this now is going through it with your mindset, which is obviously the better one to have, versus, just this. I just felt like so uncomfortable in a space that I just wasn't connected to and didn't. Yes, I wanted to learn, but you just have to almost just embrace the awkwardness of a new skill, which, if you don't have the right people around you to do that, it's quite hard to do.
Yeah. No, and I enjoyed it. I enjoyed that part of it. I mean, it was upskilling to get to the stage where, Channel 9 ended up knocking on my door. So that's where.
Was that the big break?
Look, I had a lot of big breaks with people trusting me. So K-Rock allowed me to call for Magic. So I called with Ian Major, the captain of the Major, the old Captain Blood and Ian Major. We're a great partnership on radio for years. Well, Ian Major was starting up a whole new realm of radio callers for that radio station Magic at the time. So
just to jump in, I haven't listened to them before, but from what I've heard, they were like the Hamish and Andy of that period.
Yes.
They were like, they're real.
So Ian Major needed someone to come and call with him for the weekends. And I was working with Trevor Barker and Barry Round and all those guys with the special comments guys. So I was working with all these gurus, and Ian Major essentially needed someone to call a minute in between his 5 minutes so he could have a drink and bite of his sandwich and away he'd go again. So K-Rock, I had to get permission from K-Rock to be able to do that. So that was a big break for K-Rock to lend me on the weekends to Arrival. And getting the gig as a trainee from Neville Oliver, who was the boss of ABC Sport at that time, that was a big break. Cos Cardone, who was boss of Nine, knew me from Port Adelaide days. He was a Port fan. So that was a big break for me. You need these doors to open. So, in terms of big breaks, I would probably say the biggest break I've ever got is when Fox opened the door.
Who was that obviously Lee Carlson now?
Yeah. So there were a number of people in management back then that I probably didn't know that said, Dwayne Russell is good enough for us. We'll go and get him. Nine had just lost the footy rights. So I didn't have a TV calling gig. So that was the big break, I think. I think I've been there, 17 odd years or whatever it is now. So in terms of going to the right organisation at the right time for the growth factor, as much as Nine paid big bucks and it was a big show to be at, there's the media, in some ways, it's not about being famous. It's about being employed for a lot of the time. I mean, you want to be employed if you've got kids going through private school and you want to have a job at a good organisation where it's really exciting to go to work. So, it wasn't about being famous going to Nine or famous going to Fox. It was having a job as a caller in football that you enjoyed going to work every day, love the people you're working with, but you were also able to put your kids through school. So IW gave me that as well. When I went from the ABC to 3RW, Craig Kelly was a manager at the time, and AW were interested in getting me from 3LO or the ABC. And Jared Healy, who was working for Nine, said, I need someone to come and do this show, Sports Day or Sports Today as it was, when Hooksy was away on tours. But Hooksy was always away on tours or coaching, and he was never there to host. So they needed a co-host for Gerard Healy. And Gerard wanted someone to talk footy with, not cricket. He used to get sick of talking cricket a bit. So I went over and had lunch with Shane Healy. It was a bite to eat in Clarendon Street. And Shane Healy said, what would it take to get you over from the ABC to AW? And silly me said, I've just been paid. Here's my pay slip.
Oh, my God.
If you can better that, I'm coming. And he looked at it and said, yep, all right. The deal was done. So Craig Kelly's on the phone. You idiot. Don't you ever do that again. That's what I'm for to negotiate. But it was just the right move at the right time, and they were opening the door.
Yeah.
So that was the whole negotiation process. Handed him my monthly pay slip and said, beat that.
That's amazing. Calling as well, and something I've never thought about stupidly, but just thought about it then, like the call on TV versus call for radio.
Yeah.
What are the biggest differences in that? Like obviously one's visual, one's audio.
I think you say less on TV.
Yep.
You've got to paint the picture on radio all the time. You have to tell them where the ball is, which team's got it. There might be two Buckleys playing. You know, you can't say De Koning if, St Kilda and Geelong are playing against each other because no one knows which De Koning. So you have to delineate between Tom and Sam or say St Kilda's De Koning, whereas on TV you don't have to do all that. So I think there's a lot more opportunity to shut the hell up on TV.
Do you prefer one or the other?
I love TV.
Love TV.
I mean, radio's good. Radio's great, but there's an adrenaline rush that comes with having to get it right on TV because that's the cut that lasts forever. You Google a highlight now, and if I get it wrong, then you got that wrong highlight forever. Whereas with radio, no one knows. I could say that was, Jack Rewalt who kicked that goal, and no one really knows unless I correct myself. It might not have been him, but, unless someone is listening at the ground, you can get something wrong. Whereas with telly, you can't get anything wrong. Everyone knows.
Do you set goals or anything for season 2026? Like, is there anything that you really want to tick off or evaluate in your own, game itself?
Nah, just keep going. Just get every moment right.
Yeah.
Right from the start of round one. Right from the pre-season comp, just get the names right. I mean, there's an expectation, I think, with telecalling. It is basic. Get the bloody names right, mate. So, that's all I care about right now. I mean, in terms of ticking stuff off, there's not really. I mean, someone asked me this year, how many games have you called on TV and how many games have you called on radio? Because Fox were doing the finals for the first time.
Yep.
So they wanted to put that on the little screen, the ticker. Dwayne Russell, certain amount of games called on TV. I got no idea. No. So, it's not really – it's funny. I broadcast for the same reason or thing that I played footy for. And I played footy for the 2 hours after the game when you won and you played okay and you just feel great that you achieved something. You're sitting there with your mates and it's like, yes, that 2 hours after a game is what I played footy for. And I don't know if I can explain that feeling of achievement to other people, but that's kind of still what I get on TV. So I still broadcast now for that feeling when I'm in my car driving home. I got it right today. There's still that. I need that feeling. It's a craving. It's a drug. So, no, that's why I broadcast. So it doesn't matter if it's a preseason game or not. All I'm doing is trying to get that feeling after a game. Got that right today.
That's awesome. I think you put that really well. English in school.
Yes.
So you've done ticked off many things, but this is amazing. We were just chatting off air before around your book, Killing for Sport. How many? 18 years?
It's been in my mind for a while. That's why I'm trying to promote it. Killing for Sport is the book that you.
Mine, we're going to do a giveaway. So we're going to buy 10 of these.
No.
No. We're buying 10 of these.
Right.
If there's 10 left, we will buy them. And we're going to do a giveaway. We're doing a Christmas thing coming up for people. Right. So this will be a great Christmas present for anyone. But talk us through this because I'm a big reader these days. Well, I've just read 2 books this year already. It is in October, I suppose.
So Geelong sacked me, and it was end of 1991. Mm-hmm. I thought I'd be a coach. It was before I got the Colac job. I drove to Warrnambool and spoke to one of the Warrnambool teams about coaching there in the Hampton League. And I was driving to Warrnambool, after being sacked, after thinking I'd be the greatest AFL player of all time and I knew it was over, that I started to think I've got to have to do something else here. And I thought I could be a fiction writer, but I've got to have a story. Well, I've got to have a story. So really it dates back to 91, where on that drive to Warrnambool and back, I started thinking about stories that I could go with. I knew quite a lot about sport, but I also knew a lot about, I sort of knew a bit about the craft of writing and keeping people engaged for an article, about light and shade. And
you said that earlier as well. So what does light and shade mean?
Okay, so sometimes you need to be able to have a moment where people are going to cry, read what you say and almost be in tears. But other times that jubilation moment as well. I think that's where in commentary you've got those moments as well where it's your calmness but also the acceleration. So every now and then you've got to hit people between the eyes with the commentary, I think. But sometimes there has to be a lighter side of it as well, just a calm talking voice to even pause a bit. So that's the light and shade.
Yep.
So light and shade is different to speed. So light and shade is different to fast and slow. So that's where I think there needs to be the highs and lows in a book as well. So take people up to really enjoy a moment or, reduce them to tears sometimes as well. But also write a moment that's happening quickly and it's unfolding really quickly in the book, but you can't have the whole book unfold super fast. So sometimes you have to pull it back and just have maybe two people sitting in a cafe, exchanging words in a nice calm moment, talking about their life. So it's got a lot of those things in it. And during the process of writing since 91, I got to cover the Olympic Games. I got to do the equestrian at the London Games. I got to do the speed skating at the Vancouver Winter Olympics. I broadcast that as well. So there's quite a bit of skating in here. When I met my wife, she was an ice skater.
Yeah, wow.
So, way back when, at the age of
in
17.
Adelaide?
Yes.
Didn't realise it was a breeding ground for ice skating in South
out
Australia.
of Theberton, the skating rink's still there. So I went and watched her skate a few times. I had an interest in skating, but I've also had this deep interest in art, strangely enough. So if I go overseas, if I go to Paris, I'd go to the Louvre, I'd go to the Orangerie, I'd go to Musée d'Orsay, I'd look at the Monets, all that kind of stuff because it's always intrigued me, that whole Picasso era, the Impressionists like Sisley and Renoir, all that kind of stuff. When I'm sitting back in my spare time, I like doing research on that. So it's about art fraud, this whole novel. That's the basics of it. It's about Jackson and Sarah, who are childhood sweethearts. It starts with their wedding day, high society wedding. Jackson doesn't turn up. So for some reason, he doesn't come to this high society wedding. It takes us back in time to how they grew together as childhood sweethearts through school, and then also takes us forward in time as to what happens next, where's Jackson, what's he doing. And it's not set on Australia. It's set in Paris, London, Monaco, French Riviera, all those. So it's an exciting overseas adventure. It's got nothing to do really with Australia. It starts with a wedding in Australia, but the whole novel's an adventure set overseas. So, that's what it's about. It's about art fraud. It's about Jackson, who's an artist, also getting involved with the right or wrong people, depending on how you see it. And even I got to chapter 50. I didn't really know who I was barracking for, Jackson or Sarah. I didn't know if I wanted them both to win or Jackson to win or Sarah to win. So people who've read it, you can take a side. Do you want Sebastian Lee to win? Do you want them all to win? So as you're reading it, you like me can take a side. So Killing for Sport, make sure you get it. And
link in the show notes as well.
There's a few reviews coming through now. I've had a few.
Yeah, please do.
Could I? I'd give
100%.
you. Here's an independent review from someone that I do not know.
I want to read this as well. The thrilling debut novel from radio and television commentator Dwayne Russell, Killing for Sport. He can run, but he can't hide. We'll have this in the link in the show notes as well. But go for the reviews.
Well, I've had a chat to a few people about this that have read it.
Yep.
So Graham Corns has talked to me.
Oh, awesome.
On his podcast about he thinks there's a lot of Australiana analogies in this. And there is one part, the one that he mentioned was the kids were running to, so Sarah's brothers are drug dealers, So
I like this book. This is really cool.
They were drug dealers, but they're selling to kids. And I've explained
I don't like that as much. But
I've explained it in this novel that kids would run to their red Nissan GTR like they were running to a Mr. Whippy van. Like that. But that's an Australian kind of reference that you might only get if you're Australian. So there's a few little Australian references in this with my analogies. But look, I had a review from an independent person who I don't even know who's read it. Rebecca, her name is. And she's astounded me with what's been a great review. Killing for Sport is Dwayne Russell's debut novel, and honestly, it's an impressive start. The story kicks off with Jackson, a man running from a wedding gone wrong, and from there it dives headfirst into a world of art, crime, violence, and survival. It's sharp, cinematic, and reads like something that was meant to be adapted for the screen. What stood out most to me was how confidently Russell writes. There's no hesitation. He balances pace, tension, and emotion in a way that feels seasoned, not like a first-time author finding his feet. The plot twists come fast, but they never feel cheap, and there's a real sense of character underneath all the action. I went in curious and came out genuinely impressed. Killing for Sport proves Russell has serious storytelling chops. I'll definitely be keeping an eye out for whatever he writes next. I highly recommend it. And that's an independent review that, like, I'm waiting for these reviews now. Yeah. So I've written it. People that I know have read it, but I'm now waiting for people who I don't know to read it and tell me what you think. So
you did set up my word that we'll be reading this, and also I think everyone here will pick up today. Like, I know this about you publicly, but I think seeing it in person, I think you've got to be one of those passionate people I've ever spoken to, and like that just beams through. Chatting to you, and I know for a fact a lot of our audience are going to read this, and make sure we leave it. What's that review left on? Is it on like Booktopia or something?
Yeah, well, she's got her own book assessment website, so she's on Instagram, and she reviews books. So she's just got my book and decided to review it. So
that's amazing.
Becca Lee is her name. So Becca, I've already said her a thank you, but I mean So I want these reviews. I'm not a footballer. I want feedback.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the thing that when I tried to get this book published, I went to publishers about 4 years ago and got knocked back by all of them. But I did ask for feedback from the publishers. Do you mind just giving me a paragraph as to why? And I had 4 or 5 publishers spend the time giving me feedback. And it's a bit like as a footballer, you want feedback. The coach is telling you quarter time or half time or during the week how to get better. These publishers who know their game gave me the instant parameter as to how to get better. It was the best thing ever. So a firm or one of those companies, publishers who knocked me back, but they knocked me back with a heap of notes as to why. And I thought, well, I can change that. I can alter the timeline. I can make chapter 14 chapter 3. I can not give away so much of the plot early and keep a bit for later. They're easy fixes. So I said to a firm, if I do a rewrite, do you mind reading it once more in a year's time? Give me a year to rewrite it and I'll bring it back to you. And they said, fine. So a year later, I went back to a firm and, Kate Blake is the lady at a firm who, said straight away when I gave her the rewrite, we love it. We're in. So there's an old story in life. You've got to find someone in life that believes in you as much as you believe in yourself. So that's what I found with Kate Blake and the publisher Affirm.
Oh, mate, congratulations. Honestly, I can hear it in your voice and I'm bloody feel that proud of just that you've got it going and it's amazing. We're definitely going to make sure we have a read. And I think earlier when I was talking, probably gibbering on about something, but I was talking about the fact of like continuing to learn new things and wanting to get the best out of yourself. And people say a lot like you talk about athletes and you can only do that in sport, and I think you're proving the point that you can do that in whatever field it is. You can be an athlete in commentary, athlete in writing books, and taking that style of craving feedback, wanting the best out of yourself, and continuing to push yourself in new areas. It's very, very impressive.
Thank you. No, it's been fun to be on. I appreciate you letting me come on. I know you've got a good reach, so hopefully those people that are watching give it a run and tell me what you think.
What's the best way to how do you communicate with the
Instagram?
Insta.
Yeah,
you're a big Instagram guy.
Get onto me on Instagram and give me your feedback. Tell me whether you liked it. If you don't like it, tell me why you didn't like it. I'm 60, but I'm still learning. I'm a sponge. I want info. That's the good part about it. If you're the kind of person that's read 500 novels. You know what you're talking about. I'm going to have a listen. That's okay. It's all good.
Honestly, we have like the most dedicated audience in the world. I can't wait to chat to you in a couple of weeks' time.
All right.
Till you get some people DMing you on this. So congratulations, mate. I've genuinely, as I said, I've known you from seeing you and what you're doing and listening to you for a long time. But yeah, meeting you today, you're giving me this like massive burst of energy of just fucking giving it a crack and continuing to learn and almost just like never, as much as you look at someone like yourself and you see, geez, they've got it figured out, you're just continuing to just try new things, which is really refreshing and yeah, you should be congratulated, mate. So well done.